Hey everyone, I'm sharing a quick video to talk about the first assignment that you have coming up on Friday, the first reflection and your response to the project topics. We didn't have a lot of time to talk about this in class on Tuesday because we were running out of time, and I wanted to make sure that I give you a little bit more detail on this before we get too late into the week, given that it is due on Friday evening. So that's why I'm recording this quick video. It's actually a replacement for the video that I planned to do about resilience. So we'll just talk about resilience in class and discuss the article and the concepts, and we'll skip a video for that. And instead, I thought that this was actually a little bit more important because you might have questions about the assignment that we wouldn't want to hold off on until Thursday. So with that said, let me talk about this. You can see on the screen, I've got the document up here. And the first part of this is the course reflection. This is connected to the ungrading philosophy that I have in the course, where we're not giving grades, but instead I want you to work with me and to reflect with me about what you want to get out of the class this semester. You might not have a solid sense of that right now because we're just kind of getting started and you're getting a sense of what this class is all about. You don't have your team project assigned yet, but overall, you know that this course is about community-based research on environmental issues. And so I just want to know a little bit more about what you're hoping to get out of it, things that you might emphasize in terms of your growth, your intellectual growth, your academic growth, maybe personal growth or goals that you have, like maybe you have a certain career aspiration. Some of you talked about that in class the other day, and there's connections there potentially with the work that you're going to do in this class. So I'm leaving it pretty open-ended, just so you can kind of share with me what you want in terms of those goals, but also any challenges or barriers that you think you might face this semester that you want to let me know about, and that I can help you with potentially, or at least have in mind as you go through the semester and you're working on your project, working with your teammates, stuff like that. You don't have to share anything that's really personal, but if you do want to share, then that's great. It's something that helps me put in context where you're at the start of the semester. So that's the first part of this assignment, is to write those 2 to 3 pages on reflection. Like I said, it's relatively open-ended, and I just kind of want you to get a chance to kind of sit down, push everything aside for a few minutes, and really think about what it is that you're hoping to get out of the class. I think it's a good exercise, and it's a nice way to kind of start fresh and start with kind of a proactive, engaged frame of mind for where we're going to go in the class. The second part is this list of projects. And here's where I wanted to just say a little bit more about the projects and what they're all about, because I think probably the descriptions give you some detail on them, but maybe it's good to have a little bit more context for them. The first one is one that is, as the name would imply, a follow-up study to a project that students did in the fall in 390 with me, and it's about food hubs. Food hubs are these centers that help link up producers, consumers, and distributors. And there's all kinds of links like that that are already part of our food system, but they're often dominated by big players, by agribusiness and some of the really powerful, large corporate entities that dominate our food system. A food hub is a way that's supposed to be a little bit more community-centered that helps link up local producers with local consumers. And so the students in the fall really focused a little bit more on the producer side of things there, looking at vendors. They interviewed some folks who have experience with food hubs in New York, and talked to some vendors as well, especially people who sell stuff at the Hamilton Farmers Market. That's what they did a survey. But they also noted that it's important to understand the consumer side of things, as well as for some of the potential for wholesale sales. That's why I listed Colgate's dining services here as a potential partner here to really engage with for this project, because possibly Colgate Dining Services could be a big customer for a food hub. They already buy a lot of local produce and they have commitments to that. In a way, you could say that Colgate's dining services already acts to some extent as a food hub. So that could be an important way of understanding the feasibility, the potential impact of a food hub. And so this project is to kind of follow up on those questions about to what extent is there like economic demand for a food hub aside from the producer benefits that would be there? And also some questions about food security. Is there a way that kind of connecting to the larger themes of resilience that we have in the course, that we could actually be more resilient in terms of our food systems by having a food hub? Is that something that is a potential benefit, or maybe it's not the best solution for us to be more resilient? That's something that team could take on as well as part of that project. The second and the third ones are both projects that are connected to sustainability work with the Hamilton Climate Preparedness Working Group. And I'll be saying more about that in coming class sessions. John Pamelia will probably talk about that next week as well. But those two projects, the second and third, are really projects that are a little bit more Hamilton focused and are trying to help support the working group in their goals of being more climate prepared. So the second one, number 2 project, is trying to see if there's a pathway, a reliable or a viable pathway from our current status as a bronze certified climate smart community with this New York State program that certifies communities as such to silver. And I think you need like 120 points in their system to get to bronze, and it's like 300 points to get to silver. So it's a lot higher level, and really there's only a few well-resourced communities in the state that have achieved that silver level. And so this project would really be looking at, does it make sense for Hamilton to try to get to silver? What would be the potential pathways for getting there? And to develop a really detailed proposal that would show how Hamilton might get there over a certain period of time, say within the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And part of that would be determined in conversation with people like in the Climate Preparedness Working Group and leaders in the town and village of Hamilton. The third one is follow-up work for previous projects that have been done in ENS 390 and in some of Professor Pattison's courses, where students have actually done assessments of vulnerability for the town and village to various hazards, things like flooding, heat events, stuff like that. They have actually done some preliminary legwork to see what kinds of risks and hazards that the town and village face. And so this group would be following up on some of the recommendations in those reports where they said, okay, next steps include X, Y, and Z. And one of those was a recommendation to develop a communications plan. And so this group would really be thinking about, okay, not so much how do we actually do the communication and affecting that, implementing it, but more like a proposal that you could hand over to the town and the village of Hamilton at the end of the semester and say, hey, you might want to think about having communication in terms of being more climate prepared as a real goal, and here's how we think you should do it. So it would really give a specific outline and would be based in best practices on literature that shows how to do communication related to climate hazards. So that group would really want to dig into that literature and find out what are some of the recommendations, some of the potential pitfalls in communication to the community around things like hazards, climate hazards, and ultimately that would make us more resilient because we'd have better communication. The fourth and fifth projects are a little bit more Colgate-centered and focus on Colgate's commitment to resiliency. And these are actually really important because I know that John Pamelia and the Office of Sustainability, Pamela Gramlich, are really gearing up to do this work in this new year. And so they could really use our support for these projects. I'm really excited about them, and I know that John is as well. And I guess I should say that I think a lot of times students in this class really want to work with the community outside of the Colgate campus. And so that might make the first, second, or third project seem a little more appealing. But these are actually really cool projects too. And especially anybody who thinks that they may want to work in sustainability, I don't know, like Office of Sustainability for a corporation or for a government office or even a university, this is a really good chance to kind of learn about the nuts and bolts of how sustainability works in those contexts. So in a lot of ways, it's actually very specific or more targeted kind of professional training than maybe the first three, although obviously those have really strong potential to give you some career experience as well. So the first one, actually the one that's number 4 on the list of projects, is to help get a sense of the landscape of higher education, especially through Second Nature's climate commitments. If you look on their website, they have a few different climate commitments that universities can sign on to. Colgate has signed on to the carbon commitment, and so we became carbon neutral by 2019, which is cool. But now we're actually going to hopefully sign the resilience commitment. And so this project would really look at other universities around the US, but maybe more broadly, that have made that resilience commitment and try to get a sense of what those universities are doing, what they've achieved, what they've proposed to do, and get a sense of what are the success stories at other places that we might be able to apply at Colgate. So it'd be giving a report back to Colgate saying, hey, we studied all these other colleges and universities and we see this broader landscape. And that's actually really helpful because peer references or peer comparisons are really important at Colgate. And in a way, there's almost like a competitive aspect to that if we say, oh, Middlebury's ahead of us in their resilience work, that sometimes gets administrators' attention because we always want to keep up and we always want to be competitive with our peers. We'll actually talk about that a little bit more in class next week, some of the ups and downs of that. The last project, number 5, which is the second of the kind of a bit more Colgate-focused ones, is going to also do some follow-up work where we actually have some details in terms of resilience assessments that have been done and some vulnerability assessments. And this is one that comes specifically from John Pamilio. He made a request that it would be great to have a team of students that would work on understanding what we need to track and measure over time to really be able to define what resiliency is for Colgate, and how are we going to get a sense of whether we're actually on track for our resilience goals and the commitments that we've made, and what are the ways that we can kind of tangibly identify and measure that over time. So especially for anybody who has kind of an interest in like the technical side of sustainability work and this type of thing, and thinks that that might be helpful for them for careers in the future, I think this is a really great project because you do actually need to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of how resilience might be measured, even kind of quantified and tracked in that way. And so for some of the students who have a little bit more of an ecology focus, I know there's a number of you who are interested in biology, this could be a way to apply that because you might actually want to track things like forest cover or different species that we have and that we want to kind of like understand the different ecosystem dynamics could be one important dimension of resilience. So if you're looking for a project that helps you put in to practice some of your biology skills and you're interested in ecology, this of the 5 may actually be the one that has the strongest connection there. So there you go, some brief additional details about those. I hope you will be in touch with me and let me know if I can answer additional questions. And of course, I'll have time to do that in class tomorrow. And I will see you then. Thanks, everyone.